So for the next sets of paper, we have 23 May, June 2020. So in question 1, so from the list of numbers, they wanted you to find multiple of 8. So pretty straightforward. You can immediately identify 32 as the answer. And when they're looking for squared numbers, the thing that I would choose will be 36. Because when 6 being squared, it will become 36. As for question C, prime numbers here, okay, so we'll be taking 37. So 33 is not considered as a prime numbers because it can be divided by 11, divided by 3, as well as 33 itself. So as for part 2, calculate the volume of this cuboid just by taking 8 multiplied with 4 multiplied with 6.5. You will get 208 as your final results. As for question 3 here, we are looking for angle BAC. Because it is an isosceles triangle, so ACB and ABC's value will be the same. They will both be 32, and adding all three angles up, you should get 180. Hence, BAC's value will be 180 minus 32 minus 32, which is 116. As for question 4, we have the journey starting at 09:15 and after 5 hours and 54 minutes. Okay, you actually get 14 and 69. But an hour only has 60 minutes. So by minusing it off with 60 in the minute section, I will be adding 1 hour to the hours part. So 14 plus 1, you get 15, and 69 minus 60, you should get 9. So your final answer for this will be 1509. As for part B, the speed is 80 and the time that we are using is 5 hours and 54 minutes. However, for speeds calculation, we are using kilometers per hour. Hence, the minutes part, we actually need to convert it into hours. So I'll be writing 80 equals to distance over 5, 54 over 60. So the distance will actually be 80 times 5, 54 over 60, which translates into 472 kilometers. As for question 5, Sophia has a bag containing 8 blue and 7 red. So picking out a randoms, and it is 90 times. First thing that I did was to identify what is the total amounts of beads inside the bag. So I'm taking 8 plus 7, you should get 15. So 90 times 7 over 15, you should get your results as 42. As for question 6, so p to the power of 2 times p to the power of 4. So since both of them has the same base, I will be taking 2 plus 4 equals to 6. As for part B, m to the power of 15 divided by m to the power of 5. Since it is divided with the same base, I will be putting minus at the power section. So through this, your m will actually be m to the power of 10. So for part C, okay, k to the power of 3 bracket to the power of 5. Because of the bracket over there, so your 5 and 3 is actually being multiplied against each other. So k will be power of 15. So basically, the entire question 6 is assessing you on the indices concept. So these are all the basics. You should be able to understand this. Question 7. So both the mixed numbers must be changed into improper fraction. And since one of them has a denominator of 4 and the other has denominator of 3, I will be combining them and have a denominator of 12. So 13 being multiplied by 3 minus 8 being multiplied with 4. So the balance of this will be 7 over 12. And that's your final answer. Question 8. Bearing of x from y is actually 274. Calculate the bearing of y from x. So in order to get the answer, I actually illustrate it out for you and label the 274 there. So I took 274 minus by 180. You will get a balance of 94, and using the alternate segment theorem, okay, you can actually reflect the 94 up. So bearing of y from x will actually be 94, and since it is less than 100, so I'll be taking 094 as the final answer. So take note on this, if the result is less than 100, please add a 0 at the front for bearings question. As for question 9, the area of a sector with a radius of 65 millimeters. Okay, take note that the answer they wanted is in centimeters. So you're required to convert the 65 millimeters into cm first. By taking 65 divided by 10, you get 6.5. So 42 over 360 times pi times 6.5 squared, your final answer will be 15.5. Question 10. A solid cylinder has a radius of 3 centimeters and a height of 4.5 centimeters. Calculate the total surface area. So surface area involves a top and the bottom of the cylinder. So I will be taking pi r squared times 2, which results in 18 pi. And for the curved part, we'll be taking the circumference of a circle and then multiply with the height. So it is 2 pi r times height, which translates into 27 pi. Adding these two up, it will be resulting in 45 pi, which translates into 141.4 centimeters. As for question 11, y is directly proportional to the cube root of x plus 3. So k here is actually the scale factor, okay? And you're required to identify it first before proceeding with the final calculation. So by substituting 5 and 2 over 3 into their respective place, your k's value will actually be 3 over 2 divided by 2, which translates into 1 over 3. So this is your new k here, and you updated the equation, which goes by y equals to 1 over 3 cube root x plus 3. So by substituting x equals to 24, you will get your final results as 1. Question 14. Finding the total perimeter of a semicircle is 19.02 centimeters. Please take note that because it is a semicircle, which means that there's a diameter or 2 radius that was involved here. So I written that r plus 1 over 2 times pi times r equals to 19.02. So 2r plus pi r equals to 19.02. I extracted the r because it was repeating. So I got 2 plus pi in the bracket equals to 19.02. So since they wanted the r, the relationship between r and the brackets is actually multiplied. So when I shift it, it will become divide. So 19.02 divided by 2 plus pi will result in 3.7 centimeters. As for question 13, as per usual, identify any horizontal or vertical line here. So we actually have y more than equals to 1.5 as our first answer over there. Then the other two is slightly tricky because you are required to run the manual calculation through identifying their gradient and also y-intercept. So the first line is the one that I did with a red pen on the left hand side. So the gradient I identified through the two coordinates that I selected, which is 0, 1 and 1, 3. M equals 3 minus 1 over 1 minus 0, which translates into 2. So y equals to 2x plus 1 because the intersect was 1. So when I construct the line, okay, the inequalities, okay, is based on where is the r located at. So the r located at the right hand corner, hence my y is actually less than equals to 2x plus 1. Why did I put less than equals? It's because the line is actually a solid line. So now we already got 2 lines in, and final one, same thing, I'll be utilizing the information of the interception, y-intercept and x-intercept. The coordinates will be 4, 0 and 0, 4. By running the calculation, m equals to -1. So y equals to -x plus 4. Okay, y is actually less than -x plus 4. So that's your final results for question 13. So question 14 here, find the acceleration of the train during the first 40 seconds. So since one of the coordinates is 0, 0, so I don't actually have to include them in the calculation. Okay, I just run the manual gradient calculation that goes by 12 over 40, which is 0.3 as the acceleration. As for part B, calculating the distance between these two stations, okay, I'll be taking the top, which is 250 minus 40, plus with the base, which is 300, divided by 2 and multiply with 12. So the information that I gotten was 3060 meters. As for question 15, because the amount given us was in interval, hence I'm required to calculate the midpoint first. So the midpoint for each group will be 10, 22.5, 30, 42.5 and 75 respectively. So how did I get them is by taking the value 20 plus 0 divided by 2 and repeat the same for the rest of the variables. After gotten the midpoint, please multiply it with their respective frequency and divide it with the total frequency. So total frequency, sometimes you don't actually have to add them all up. You can actually trace it from the question itself. So the table shows the amount of money X given to a charity by each of 60 people. So immediately you know that the total is actually 60. So 85 over 3, you will get 28.3 as your final answer. Question 16. Okay, so the keyword here is same. And for simple interest calculation, because of the compound interest calculation, when we extract the final answer, it's actually value of investment, where it includes the initial amount and the interest earned. So for us to calculate from the simple interest calculation, you'll be taking 2000 times 5 times 1.25%. But please remember to add the original amount that you invested, which is 2000, in order to get to value of investment. So with this 2125, you can now construct the compound interest investment plan. 2000 times 100% plus r% to the power of 5 equals 2125. So the rest of the calculation is pretty clear cut. You just repeat the steps that I did. You should be able to get your R as 1.22%. So some of you are using other formula. Some is using 1 plus the percentage. It's all the same, because when you key in 100% into calculator, it's actually 1. So I remember some students mentioned about 1 plus PRT is all the same thing. Just that I prefer to write it this way. Okay, it's a way that I use to explain to my students. It's clearer in my perspective and from my experience. If you got your own formula, by all means, feel free to use it. It doesn't really matter much. Okay, it's just a personal preference. For question 17, okay, calculating the value of m. So they gave us the area. So when you saw the area keyword, I'm using the comparison method. So I will be putting a square root to the area information given. So you can actually use the scale factor method. So for more details, you can actually search up my revision guide, okay, where I actually explain these two methods in details. Okay, I will also a lot of other topics that I already created. You can feel free to browse through the revision guide playlist. So m over square root of 52.5 equals to 8 over square root of 134.4. By running the cross multiplication, you should be able to identify your m as 8 times square root of 52.5 divided by 134.4. So m results will be 5 after the final calculation. So 18a, this is actually completing the square, and I got my own shortcut method. So if you struggle to understand the method that I use, feel free to browse to the revision guide again, because I already made a video specifically explaining this. So in our case, I will only looking at the first two variables that was given, which is the x squared minus 18x. So I will put my a square and 2ab underneath it, because I'm using the a plus b bracket square formula. So my a will be x and my b will be the k that we are trying to search for. So comparing the center value of negative 18x equals to 2xb, your b's final value will be negative 9 and k will be negative 9. So because of the formula a plus b square, okay, after we expand it, it will be a square plus 2ab plus b square. So for you to do completing the square, the last part, did you notice that the integers we didn't use was negative 27? This negative 27 here must be minus off with the b square that we added. Okay, so in our case, it's actually minusing off k square. So I took x minus 9 bracket square minus 27 minus 9 square. So you will get x minus 9 bracket square minus 108. Your k is actually negative 9 and your h is negative 108. So part B, using your part A solution and solve this equation. So since that it was equals to 0, I can shift the 108 to the other side, square root it, and you should get x minus 9 equals to square root, okay, 108. Because there was a square root, so remember to put plus and minus to it. So your x value will be square root 108 plus 9, or x equals to 9 minus square root 108. So your value will be x equals to negative 1.39 and x equals to 19.4. For question 19a, okay, so because they didn't give us the intersection, okay, the only variables that can fill up immediately will be the 4 do not wear glasses and do not have driving license. Okay, so I'll be putting 4 outside first, then I set x as the intersection. Those that wear glasses, I put it as 28 minus x. And those who have driving lesson, I put it as 13 minus x. By adding all these variables up, it will be equals to 40. And by doing the calculation, your x will be 5. So 5 at the center, 28 minus 5 will be 23. 13 minus 5 will be 8. So using a set notation to describe the region that contains 32 students, it will be G union with everything other than D. Because 23 plus 5 plus 4 will be 32 students. As for part B, they are looking for the numbers of elements where B union with F intersect with everything other than H. So I actually drew it out over there where B union with F, I labeled it with the red line. And for everything other than H, I uses the black line. So because the relationship between the two variables is intersection, so I'll be using the part that was overlapped. So you'll be taking 2 plus 7 plus 6, which is 15 as your final answer. As for part C, they are looking for P union with Q intersect with R and everything other than it. So Q intersect with R, okay, and everything other than it are using the red line that I drew. Then I shaded P with a different pattern. So because the relationship is union, so whatever side that I actually shaded must be included. So the only part that I left empty was Q intersect with R, okay, excluding the part where it touches P. So those is the part that you need to leave it empty, that's all. As for question 20, they wanted you to calculate the angle AV make with the base. So things to take note was we are required to calculate the AC's length first and then divide it by 2 because the base is a square. Okay, which means the diagonal length of AC, when you cut it into half, it will arrive at AM. So AC square, I trace it through Pythagoras theorem, you get 11 square root 2, and multiplying it by half, you get 11 square root 2 over 2. So with this information, I illustrated a triangle at the side, which consists of AVM. AV's value will be 18.6 and AM value will be 11 square root 2 over 2. So cosine AVM equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So 11 square root 2 over 2 divided by 18.6. Cosine inverse the results, you should get 65.3 as your final answer. As for the last question, we have vector here. Okay, the key information that was hidden was that it is a parallelogram. Hence, PQ is actually equals to OR equals to ST. So all three of them is A. And since O was the so-called midpoint, okay, where SO equals to OP, so your direction of S to O will be B, your O to P will be B, your T to R will be B, and R to Q will be B as well. So the main information that we didn't fill up will be 2T to TV equals to 2 to 1. So immediately I know that the total ratio was 3 and the total segment that they are referring to will be SV. So ST itself will be 2 over 3 of SV and TV itself is 1 over 3 of SV. So since ST is A, so A equals to 2 over 3 of SV, SV value will actually be 3 over 2 A. So that's the thinking that I did prior to approaching the question itself. I try to fill up whatever information that I can get before proceeding with the calculation. Position vector of T, basically they are asking for OT. So OT equals to OS plus ST. Since we only have SO value, changes in direction will result in a negative. So negative B plus A, or you can write it as A minus B. As for the next one, they are asking for RV here. It will be RT plus TV, where it is negative B plus 1 over 3 SV. So 1 over 3 SV, we already identified the value of SV earlier. Now you can substitute it in, and you get negative B plus A over 2. Okay, or you can write it as A over 2 minus B. Show that it is parallel. Okay, PT is parallel to RV. So for this, you're required to check whether they can arrange in the same form and then identify their scale factor here. So PV, okay, so the first thing that I did was to identify PT. PT is actually PS plus ST, which translates into A minus 2B. And RV that we gotten earlier is actually OA minus B. So when I extracted 1 over 2 from it, you should get A minus 2B as well. So from this information, I can know that PT and RV is actually parallel to each other, and PV is actually twice the value of RV. So the trickiest question will actually be this question 21 here. The rest overall is still solvable. So if you have friends that are struggling to solve this paper, feel free to share this paper to them, and I wish you all the best in your upcoming examination. If you notice any issue, please feel free to drop your comment in the comment section, and I will look through it as soon as possible. So all the best in your upcoming examination. Thank you.